In this lesson, we're going to be talking about using a program called Sudo. Sudo is similar to the idea of switching users to the root user, or actually any user. It's just that rather than doing a full-out switch user to the other user, what I would do would be to do sudo and then a particular command. So I would do sudo ls, for example, if I wanted to perform an ls as the root user. This is really helpful where I can do root level tasks without actually having to become root. The problem with becoming root is sometimes people forget that they actually have root privileges, and what they end up doing is things as root that could cause damage to the system, and it's just because they've forgotten that they're actually root. So this is actually quite a bit safer. You could see, for example, that I could take a look at the shadow file, and in this case, it's going to prompt me for my password. The reason for that is because I've been configured with the sudo program to actually have sudo permissions to gain root level access. And I need to prove to sudo that I actually am my own user. That prevents people from walking up to an open console, for example, where I'm logged in, and they start doing sudo commands as root without actually having to authenticate in any way. As a result, we end up with having to authenticate as ourselves just to perform these root level tasks. Now, I'm going to show you the sudoers file. So I'm going to vi sudo, and that's going to allow me to edit the sudoers file. This is the common sudoers file for Red Hat Enterprise Linux, and in this case, CentOS. You can see that there are a lot of things that I can actually do with sudo. I could actually restrict particular commands rather than giving somebody the ability to do absolutely everything. So you can see there are command aliases. And then we get down to the point where we're actually allowing particular users to have some capabilities. So for example, anybody in the sys group could run the networking, software services, storage, delegating, processes, locate, and drivers commands that were configured up above. What I want to do is actually provide the wheel group to run every command on the system as root. I would have to configure the users that I wanted to have these particular permissions to put them into the wheel group. Now, I could also do wheel without a password. In this case, I'm allowing somebody to gain privileges on a command-by-command basis without having to type their password. This is really insecure. This is something I use from time to time on my own systems at home that nobody else has access to. It's really just a bad idea not to require somebody to authenticate at all. What I've done here is I've allowed the wheel group to perform all commands, and we can require that they authenticate in order to run those commands. You'll notice actually when I did the sudo vi sudo, it didn't actually ask me for a password. The reason for that is it actually caches the credential for a period of time, assuming that once I type my password in, I'm actually sitting in front of the keyboard for a few minutes. And so it's actually going to cache the credential, so I can do a number of things as root using sudo and still have the root level access without having to type my password again. So that allows me to keep doing work without actually having to continue to type my password. Now, I had said previously that we had to add the users to the wheel group. Now, I've looked up the wheel group here, and you can see that I put my two users, or the two non-root users, into the wheel group. So both of these users have root level permissions now. All they have to do is type sudo in front of any command, and they'll be requested for their password, at which point the command will execute with root level permissions. So you can see sudo is actually really helpful. It not only gives us root permissions temporarily, but it keeps us safe by not requiring that we actually do an su to root. As I said earlier, that's a place where you could su to root and start doing a whole bunch of things. Next thing you know, you've deleted a bunch of system files accidentally. Sudo requires you to actually think a little bit before you start doing particular tasks so you can actually protect yourself and your system a little bit better. Sudo is a really good utility. It's one that you should really get in the habit of using on a regular basis. Use sudo to do your administrative tasks, and most of the time you're just logged in as your regular user, where you can do whatever you would normally do. Anytime you have to interact with the system in a particular way, then you would use sudo.